He's had a lot of time to do what he needs to do, and he's going to be back, and he'll be hungry and looking forward to meeting the people.
He'll be hungry and looking forward to meeting the people. I'm not sure I would have used that choice of words with Doug Ford in anticipation of his brother coming back into the public eye after 60 days in rehab up in Muskoka. And, everybody who really feels on a compassionate and humane level that this is something that needs to be addressed, and hopefully he's been successful. We're waiting to watch and see exactly where he's going from here. Where we're going is to introduce Harvey Brooker, the diet guru and founder of Harvey Brooker's Weight Loss for Men, because the mayor is a man after all, and this is a very intriguing question as to whether he can stay the course, what's the prospects or probability of that, and just general fitness for men right across the board, because there are a lot of men, including, you heard that testimonial from Nick Marchand. Lost 103 pounds since January. That's pretty impressive. Harvey, good to have you here on the program this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Weight loss for men, I've always been intrigued because, it seems like the real sweet spot is women's weight loss. So you kind of got this aspect of the market. Why for men specifically? What made you gravitate towards that?
Well, I think when I started this 29 years ago, I discovered quickly that the only place that men could ever go to lose weight would be to a gym.
Right.
And they were told to sweat it off. And I thought, no, that's not the way it works. That's not the way I lost my weight. And so I suggested to a small group of guys that I would help them lose their weight. And from there, it's just kind of grown. And we've been doing this continually, especially on Sunday, for 29 years, every single Sunday. Never been closed one Sunday since.
Wow. How many men you think in that time, 29 years, you've helped to reduce weight?
Well, the number of men is probably much more than 1,000, but currently we have over 200 guys attending our 3 classes, and they vary in weight. Nick's a pretty interesting guy. He came in January, and I saw quickly that this guy's going to lose his weight. He had that look in his face that I look for, and that's why I approached him and said, Nick, would you do the commercials on, you're a 640 listener, would you do the commercials? And he agreed, and so, the rest is
But you read that in his face, so what do you have, like the eye of the tiger? What is it?
It's just that hungry look that guys have, to use the term again, but it's just that look. I can just see that they're willing to listen, they're willing to do whatever's necessary, they have made their mind up that they've had enough, and, I've been fat enough long enough, and I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to insult my own intelligence. I don't want to be a threat to my family. And he had that, and I could see it, and that's why I approached him.
Commitment. The last time we spoke, it was actually when the mayor went in on this thing with Doug about losing all that weight, and they turned it into a bit of a circus there. And you and I both agreed it wasn't going to happen because of the approach. Maybe he didn't have that sense of commitment. It was almost too much of a trend or a fad thing that they were embracing at that time. Was that your take on it?
Exactly. I thought that the mayor had put himself out there, and he shouldn't have. I mean, it's a pretty private thing. Most of the guys who come to me, they don't even say anything to anybody until they start producing results, and then people can't help but notice in many cases. But the mayor should not have done that, and I said so at the time, and you agreed with me. And this last couple of months is a good start for him. I'm proud of him for doing it, and for himself, Doug and the whole gang there, I think. But, a guy who took it very seriously was John Tory.
Right.
John came to me, phoned me one day and said, no gifts, no nothing. How much do you charge? And paid me, and he lost 40 pounds. And if you look at John doing his campaigning, you can see that he's pretty svelte looking. But you have to take it really very seriously. And John also came back after he finished losing his weight to make sure that he sustained it.
Well, that's the question, too. I mean, with the mayor, he may have dropped because the reports early are that he went from a 53 waist to a 44. Could you gauge how much weight that would be just to ballpark it within 10 pounds? What do you suspect you might see today?
I usually look at about 7 pounds an inch, something like that.
Wow.
So
60 pounds?
Yeah, around 7 pounds an inch. So what are they saying? Is it 9 inches or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say probably 60, 65 pounds. But, the trick is going to be now for him to be able to sustain it, and he's going to need aftercare. I know he's a guy who's a doer and thinks he can accomplish so many things on his own. But this one you need help with. It's not anything that you're going to be able to do, and he's got dual problems there from what I see, and he needs the care of the doctors even beyond just being in the clinic.
So maintaining then a healthier weight, let's call it, as we're anticipating, is almost like a 12-step program. You've got to deal with that demon every day. I mean, where's the breakthrough come where, or is it just, again, every day you can face temptation? I mean, let's face it, his lifestyle, too, is not conducive to sitting down and eating, regulated meals or anything like that. He's running all around, and there's stress involved and things like that. How can you be assured that maybe he would maintain, or how advisable is it that he do something on the basis as maybe an alcoholic, or recovering alcoholic, or a drug addict also has to have, constant sessions and what do we call that? Where,
Aftercare.
Aftercare.
Yeah, and I think, for instance, I've had clients of mine who have been in Donwood's clinic and here in Toronto and they have been 90 days in under the care of Donwood. And then when they come out, they're told to attend, if it's Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcanon or someplace, for usually 90 days in a row afterwards, and then less frequently maybe. But most of them, in order to have long-term recovery from this, you have to do this for years. I even, where the weight loss is concerned, I even urge my clients that it's a 5-year stretch. It doesn't just happen overnight. You'll lose the weight in 6 months or 9 months, and and that often happens for many of the men that I see in other programs. But then the trick is, how do you sustain the weight afterwards? And you can only do that by going repeatedly for what was referred to as aftercare.
Well, and as you say, and this is very poignant in your spots and promotional material, if you could have done it on your own, you would have done it by now.
Yeah, and that's the way it is with just about any obsessive compulsive behavior that you want to turn around, and you have to get help.
Let's come back and talk some more about not only what the mayor might be facing in terms of maintaining his weight loss, but in general terms, a part of a healthy regimen for men primarily. Harvey Brooker is the diet guru and founder of Harvey Brooker's Weight Loss for Men. What are the secrets? It's not in a pill or a magic potion, as Dr. Oz has been condemned and criticized for. I want to bring that up as well, because he's taken some heat from the Senate committee hearing, and I think it's timely that we touch on that aspect of things as well.
We use the alternative solutions often commonly used in countries, other parts of the world, like in the Ayurvedic tradition in subcontinent of India, or traditional Chinese medicine. We feature cleanses and new diet programs by promising authors. Now, many of these are controversial, as are the supplements that we researched and profile. I would rather have a conversation of this material on my stage than in back alleys.
I don't get why you need to say this stuff, because you know it's not true.
All right, Senator Claire McCaskill, you might recall recently grilling at a Senate committee hearing Dr. Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, he of the afternoon TV show. He's so impactful that he gives the green light to a supplement, or what he calls maybe a magical potion or pill, and these things fly off the shelf, but that's misinformation. He got called on it and having to retreat pretty dramatically now. It's a big story, though, insofar as it impacts, people's dietary regimens and looking to lose weight through some kind of a supplement or other. Well, Harvey Brooker's here to address that and a whole lot more when it comes to these matters. Harvey Brooker's Weight Loss for Men is, of course, his mark and trade. Harvey, the idea that Oz would be talking about some kind of a way, through diet supplements and things. We see them in the health food stores, anything to this at all? I mean, do you implement any of this in your work, your daily, your weight loss regimen for men?
I always said that most people would sell their soul to the devil to find an answer for their weight.
Right.
And people do that. They just simply will just keep on shopping and looking. And so when an authority, so-called authority like Oz comes out, and his predecessor, Dr. Phil, did the same thing, if you remember, about 10 years ago, was taken to task for what he talked about in not only weight loss, but in other cures for things. People believe it, and they're looking for that answer, and they're continuing to look for that answer. And I've been at this since I was 27. I'm 70 years old now. I've been in this field for a long, long time, and I've seen all the charlatans that I ever would want to see. I try to practice as honest as I can. Everything that I say, there's no supplements, there's no special foods to buy on our program, for instance. I don't send people to spend extra money on doing things, but I keep hearing this stuff over the years. You wouldn't believe what's gone on in the 43 years that I've been doing this, but Oz, when I saw the tapes of the Senate hearings, and I wasn't surprised at all, because these guys, they become almost like godlike because they're on TV, and and people think of doctors like that anyway. I mean, there's doctors right here in Ontario who are doing things that go completely against anything that I would believe it's going to help anybody lose weight, and they get away with it because they're doctors.
So are we saying then the secret to weight loss, if there is one, is pretty much established? You've got to diet, exercise, and limit your intake of calories and things like that. What is the I don't want you to give away trade secrets here or anything, but what is the insight? Is that pretty much it?
John, about 150 years ago, the whole Western culture changed. And what we changed to was we used to do labor every single day. I'll bet you if you go back one or two generations in your family, you probably were farmers or people who did tradesmen who were always using muscle and burning lots and lots of calories. I mean, the folks in St. Jacobs, Ontario, the Mennonites, they use 5,000 calories a guy, according to a Star report a few years ago. But they eat 5,000, they burn 5,000. We don't do that anymore. Most of the people who are listening to the show right now are on their way in their car to sit behind a desk of some type all day long, and they're not going to burn the calories. So our eating has to be different. So along came the cars, computers, and television sets. We sit, we eat, and the fast food companies and the processed food companies are throwing all this stuff at us, say, eat this, and this tastes delicious, and you go out to a restaurant and have about 2,000 calorie meal. How in the heck are you ever supposed to burn that off? It's impossible. And so the idea is you have to modify your behavior, and we call it, really, people don't like this word, these three words when they hear them for the first time, chronic restrained eating. And chronic restrained eating is not a term that I developed. It's a research term, and they use it, for instance, if a woman's pregnant and she, certain things that she shouldn't be eating or doesn't want to eat, she's chronically restraining herself from doing that. Or a child may be allergic to peanuts, so he's chronically restraining himself from. So what we do is fat, sugars, and salts, and combinations of that. And Michael Moss, in his brilliant book, Fat, Sugars, and Salts, as a bestseller now on the New York Times list, he says that clearly, that we can't get away with this. We just simply, we take in all these calories, we can't burn them off, and that's why obesity is rearing its ugly head in our society today.
Do you think it's also responsible in large measure for the cancers that we're seeing? It seems like there's an increase in all of these things as well. Is that diet related, do you believe? Well,
I've always asked, from a physiological point of view, whose physiology do we have, human beings have the most similar to? And, it would be the great apes or gorillas. And gorillas eat 80 pounds of vegetation in an average day, and they drink no water because they get all their fluid from plants. And, probably if we really go back to Homo sapiens and what we're supposed to eat, it's probably a lot of vegetation. And so if we're putting all this stuff in ourselves with all of these chemicals, and we're getting all these diseases, including cancers and other things that affect us, the one that gets away on everybody is this thing called sleep apnea. And it's very easy to define sleep apnea in almost all cases. We get fatty deposits in the throat because there's fat all over our body once we become obese, and next thing you know, you got one of these masks on your face and you're trying to sleep with this. There's so many side effects of obesity, and cancer might be one of them from the foods we eat, but there's a whole lot of side effects that are not dealt with. 90% of all diabetics, according to other reports, I'm not quoting reports from things far off in the wilderness. I'm talking about Star or Globe and Mail, things that I have read. 90% of all people who have type 2 diabetes are overweight.
Yeah.
So are they overweight because they have diabetes, or they have diabetes because they're overweight? 90% of all people who get knee and hip replacements in Ontario are overweight. Are they overweight because of their hips aren't working? No.
Right.
They gain all this extra weight, and their hips and their knees just can't work as they were meant to work.
Weight loss guru Harvey Brooker with us. Harvey Brooker's Weight Loss for Men. That's a specialty. Now, when you mentioned about folks who are obese and other things, are there some clients that you just can't help? Let's say it's genetic. Do you believe in that? There's a genetic predisposition to being obese or not?
I'm sure that we follow traits of our parents. Many of our traits, we do things like them. Some of us look like them and we're built like them. And so why would there be? But I think human beings are creatures of choice. We have the ability to start choosing differently. People ask me what I need in order for a guy to be successful, and what I say is, just give me somebody who's got reason. If you can reason, I can show you the way out of this. Mm-hmm. And it isn't a simple way. It isn't something that I can wave some fairy dust over your head and you're going to lose your weight. You're going to have to attend classes. You're going to have to do all the mechanics that we talk about. And then afterwards, when you finish losing your weight, don't think you're free and clear of this, because it usually takes about 5 years. You have to go through 5 years of stabilization in order for you to be able to sustain your weight. There is no easy way out. People are looking for one. They just get frustrated looking for it. They're not going to find it easily.
These are the fad diets that, they keep rotating through, Atkins, South Beach, whatever, and so on and so forth. So as much as it's diet and exercise, it's also psychology to a certain extent, isn't it?
Well, I did one-on-one personal coaching for 23 years, and I booked about 36,000 half hours with people sitting across the desk, no further than you and I are sitting across the desk now. And I would talk to guys and I would hear about, if a guy's had a life that's been challenged and he uses food as some kind of solace, I try to get him to understand that, you got to get into exercise. You have to start practicing some type of ability to be able to say no, and by not having it in your house or not going to places where the food that you are susceptible to is available. So it does take work and it takes time. And a lot of people think there's some kind of magic way, and they're always looking. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and people have found that out, and as soon as they do, there's all kinds of things like Dr. Oz that have been going on, and they'll just continue. Because, it wasn't P.T. Barnum, by the way, that said it, but his across the road, his competitor said, right. You see the lineup? There's a sucker born every minute.
Right.
And in this business, there is more than one, because they keep on looking for answers.
And the easy route out, or the easy answer, and as you're saying, it's really about commitment, and it could be a long commitment. There's a long arc to it, as we're saying when we first started with the mayor coming back, and hopefully, he's dropped the pounds, but the aftercare is going to be critical now, and if he has the stick-to-itiveness, there's always a shot. Going from a 53 to a 44, we're saying that could be about 70 pounds. I'm excited to see, the prospect that he's lost the weight, and that might augur well for a lot of guys who think they're hamstrung or they can't get through it. But Harvey Brooker's Weight Loss for Men, that's a good way of actually putting it into a perspective that, it's not just diet and exercise, it's also the commitment and the eye of the tiger. If a guy really wants to do it, he can do it. And so you ever think about branching into the female side of things? I mean, there's a whole other project.
That's a whole other challenge, and I did work with women for many years. I love working with men. I feel it's my calling. I just enjoy it. When I see guys like the guy who's doing the ads on this station, I get this wonderful feeling of help. I have a guy that it's kind of unbelievable. He joined last June, 1 year ago. He weighed 419 when I got him. He's one of these guys you saw. He looked like the Unabomber with long hair and, 419. He's scary looking. And as of yesterday, he lost 235 pounds with us. Wow. And he did it by eating healthy. And I asked him if he's been to his doctor. His doctor's been checking him out. He's feeling great. He looks just amazing, and, night and day. And I just get such a wonderful feeling. After all these years, I still enjoy. I do this class on Sunday morning. I wake up at 5:30, 5:45. I'm there. I've been doing this regularly for, almost 30 years, and I love it.
Wow. Well, it's good to talk to you again on this matter, and we'll see what the mayor presents himself as later on this afternoon. Harvey Brooker, diet guru, founder of Harvey Brooker's Weight Loss for